What's going on, people? It's your boy Leon from Leon Talks TV. Back at it again. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be talking about, are men delusional for wanting a woman who's a virgin or with a very extremely low body count? So let's get into it. Are the men out there delusional? We've been seeing a lot of talk on the internet. We've been seeing talks about body count this and body count that, and don't get with a woman with a high mileage, and men want to get with younger women because they're more likely to be virgins, and all of this talk. Now, it begs the question. Sometimes we talk about women's delusion. Women want this, and women want the perfect man, and want a $1 million man. And we call women out on their delusion. But nonetheless, do men suffer from delusion? From wanting a woman that's a virgin? Are there unrealistic expectations? Let's delve into it. So me personally, are men delusional? Well, it depends. Depending on what part of the world you're from. I would probably say yes and no. But specifically, we're talking about the Western world. And this could probably apply to anywhere else. But a lot of men can be a bit delusional, or better yet, unrealistic, especially depending on their age. I've found that many young women in their late teens and early 20s start out being very promiscuous. So you'll find that a lot of women don't even have a low mileage in their teenage years. You know what's funny is that I remember when I was getting to know this girl, I was about 17 years old. She was 19 at the time. And we was talking about how many people we had been with and how many, so to speak, we're talking about how many partners we had been with sexually, right? So, and what's funny is that at this stage of my life, considering I was 17 years old, I hadn't been active much. So I was still kind of early in the game, so to speak. I had just broken my virginity a year before that. So I lost my virginity when I was, just when I turned 16. I was a bit late. Well, that's debatable, whether I was late or not. Some people started as early as 13, 11, 12, whatever. For me, started late in some people's eyes. So by that time, I was talking to this girl. I had about 5 or 6 bodies on me, that I had laid down. Not criminally, by the way. When it was her turn to tell me how many people she had been with, I got the shock of my life. When she said she had been with 19 people at the age of 19, I didn't even know how to take this. To be honest, on one hand, I thought, damn, I'm kind of moving slow. But on the other hand, I thought, damn, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of bodies, especially at that age. It kind of put me off. No. It did put me off 1,000%. But looking back, I figured that I needed to gain more experience because I was slacking. Or that's how I thought at the time, right? However, as you get older, you realize women's access to sex for women and men is totally different. And that's something I didn't realize back then. But nonetheless, it still kind of played with me. So you see, a lot of women nowadays are starting to really start early. But here's the problem. Many times men can be a bit delusional in thinking that they're going to find someone with a low mileage. Honestly, I would say that women in today's society often have double digits bodies on their resume when it comes to sleeping with partners, right? But that's just my opinion. And I'm basing this off just history alone, of things that I've seen and women that I've talked to over the years. But obviously, I don't know every woman out there. I'm just going off of this on my own experiences. However, when it comes to women with sexual partners, research and recent statistics show that women, especially in Western countries, generally have more sexual partners than previous generations, which is true. But the average is not typically in the double digits. For example, surveys in the UK and the US report that women average around 7 sexual partners over their lifetime. Some countries like New Zealand and Austria report higher averages around 13 to 20 for women. But these are exceptions rather than the norm. While there are individual cases and certain countries where averages are higher, most Western women do not have double-digit partner counts according to available data. Make that as you will. But here's the problem. Women can actually present themselves as having low mileage. However, not as virgins though. But what we often see, though not all women, let's just put that out there, just those with the loudest presence, is that many women are not even trying to sell themselves as having low mileage. I say this respectfully. In today's day and age, we are seeing things like the promotion of promiscuous behavior, with platforms like OnlyFans becoming huge. Every day, there's a woman on your timeline twerking or posting half naked pictures on Instagram. More women are moving in that direction, selling half naked pictures on OnlyFans and using Instagram to build an online presence by sharing sexual content. They often pose half naked to entice men. While these types of things have always existed, this generation has intensified it. You can't be mad at the end of the day, because whenever there's a high demand, there will be a supply. So it makes sense to capitalize of the many simps that are out there. I once saw an interview with Charleston White when he was referring to Brittany Renner's baby father. And he said, there's a sucker born every single day. So why not finesse a guy that wants to get finessed? Take that as you will. So going back to my other point, you can still dress sexy as a woman, but classy, right? When it comes to men's delusion versus women's delusion is often based on statistics and facts. For example, a woman might say she wants someone who makes six figures and above in terms of financial status, has a good personality, is faithful, a man of God, good looking, and of certain height or taller than them. These traits are quite rare, and statistics backs this up. Men who meet all these criteria are literally below the 1%. You see, when you consider financial status and all the necessary traits and attributes. But at the same time, I feel like men can be delusional or unrealistic, as it's still possible to find such a woman, just a lot harder. This also depends on religious background. Considering most religion and cultures have more of a, lack of a better word, strict and more of a protection when it comes to protecting women's innocence and purity. So men of these background have a better chance of finding a woman who's a virgin, or somewhat a woman with a low mileage if she's not a virgin. Even with that being said, I still believe the average woman out there can still present herself as that a lot easier than they can find a handsome millionaire. On the other hand, men can be unrealistic in wanting a partner who is a virgin or has very little sexual experience, while it might seem easier for women to present themselves in a certain light. But however, I feel that it's a lot easier for women to sell purity, because you just have to do is act like you have a low mileage, feed into the man's ego, making him believe in his delusion. So, are men delusional for wanting a virgin? Summary of perspective. So let's talk about the idea of men wanting a virgin partner. Some men value virginity because of personal, cultural, or religious beliefs, which is totally fine. They often see it as a sign of purity or exclusivity. However, this preference can sometimes be unrealistic or problematic, especially as people get older and gain more life experience. For instance, if a man is a virgin himself, it makes sense for him to seek out another virgin for the first experience together. But however, this is more common in men and women in their teenage years. This can also help reduce pressure and create a sense of mutual understanding. But when a guy's desire for a virgin comes from insecurity or a need for control, thinking that a less experienced partner will be more submissive or won't compare him to others, that's when things get a bit tricky. This attitude often reveals deeper personal issues and unrealistic expectation about relationships. You see, a lot of the times, men will say that being with a virgin can demonstrate a woman's loyalty to that man, and that she doesn't have a desire to cheat because she has nothing to compare it to. They may have done statistics on this, however, my opinion is slightly different. On one hand, I feel like being with a virgin can solidify your relationship in terms of having nothing to compare it to from the woman's perspective. But there's a saying that a woman's first sexual partner will always leave an imprint on her, and he may be the love of her life, or she may develop a strong affection for that person. However, here's where I think it can be a bit of a catch-22. Just because you're with a virgin does not mean for 1 second, and I mean for 1 second, that she won't cheat on you. A woman who is a virgin and gets her first sexual partner can still exhibit behaviors driven by a fear of missing out. If she has only experienced one man, she might still have the desire to explore life with other men. She might want to know what it feels like to be with different partners and experiences all the aspect that comes with being in various relationships. So it's not always the case that you will get loyalty just because a woman is a virgin. I believe it can work both ways, but being a virgin doesn't guarantee that she will remain loyal. There are women out there who, if they only experience one man, only have that one experience to compare it to. And for them, they do not want to live their whole entire life thinking to themselves, or better yet, going through the whole life with regrets of who they could have been with. So if she's only been with you, she might end up getting bored of you. Yes, she has nothing to compare it to, but that's the problem. She wants to experience other people. She wants to experience other sexual partners, other relationships, all of this. Do you know what I'm saying? On one hand, you want someone that only knows how it feels to be with you, and she's content with that. But on the other hand, that same girl that you think is pure and has purity in her, there's a whole wide world that she wants to experience. But it can work it can work for you and it can work against you. So don't always think that just because you're with a virgin, she won't cheat on you or she doesn't want to experience other men in her life. You see, as society evolves, many people now view the obsession with virginity as outdated or immature. This is especially true if a man has had sexual experience but expects his partner to remain a virgin. Key points: not delusional, but often unrealistic. Wanting a virgin isn't necessarily delusional, but expecting to find one, especially as you get older or outside certain cultural contexts, can be unrealistic. Motivation matters. If a man wants a virgin because he values shared experiences, that's reasonable. But if it's driven by insecurity or a desire to control, it can lead to unhealthy dynamics. Modern relationships. Most people today prioritize honesty, compatibility, and mutual respect. For someone's sexual history, focusing too much on virginity can limit your dating options and may come off as immature to some. So, conclusion. In summary, while it's not inherently delusional for men to want a virgin partner, the reason behind that desire are crucial. If the preference stems from insecurity or double standards, it can become problematic and unrealistic as we grow older. So when it comes to the idea of men wanting women with low mileage, the perspective can vary depending on where you are in the world. In the Western world, many men can be somewhat unrealistic in their expectation, especially regarding the age of women they're interested in. Today, a lot of young women in their late teens are quite open about their sexual experiences, and you might find that many of them don't fit the traditional idea of having low mileage. It's common for women to start dating and exploring their sexuality early than in previous generations. Here's where it gets tricky. Many men still hold on to the belief that they can find women who fit their ideal of having low mileage. However, in today's society, many women are open about their experiences and don't necessarily try to present themselves as pure. Social media platforms like OnlyFans have made it easy for women to share more of themselves, and many are embracing that freedom without shame. Well, it's true that some women can still market themselves as having low mileage by dressing modestly or presenting a certain image, especially online. The reality is that this generation is more open about their sexuality. Now, when we talk about delusion, it applies to both men and women in different ways. For example, women might have high expectations for their partner, like wanting someone who makes six figures, has a great personality, is faithful and good looking, and taller than they are. These qualities can be tough to find all in one person. The reality is that both men and women can have delusions about what they want in partner. But however, with that being said, I'm gonna just leave it there. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Catch you later. Salute.